Let's bring back our panel, Christina Bellantoni, David Chalian, and Cynthia Tucker. Cynthia, let me start with you. The one thing that we want to talk about this debt deal and Gang of Six, President jumped right on it. Part of this whole Gang of Six, and part of what the President's pushing for, is some entitlement hits on Social Security and Medicare, which, by the way, in our poll, is not popular to do. Is the President risking more here than even he admits?
Well, House Democrats certainly think so. Nancy Pelosi has, perhaps it's a dream, but she has this dream of winning back the House for Democrats. And she was counting on bashing Republicans over Paul Ryan's Medicare plan in order to do that. If Obama then muddies the message by talking about hits to Medicare himself, the House Democrats lose that perceived advantage. And so it is not at all clear why he thinks it's a good idea to talk about this.
Christina, you're a big watcher, and CQ Roll Call, a huge watcher of Capitol Hill. The pent-up frustration yesterday, the split to me between, you had Rita McConnell in one camp, in the same camp. No, we're supermen. We've got the answer to raising the debt ceiling. And all of a sudden, about 50 rank-and-file members sending out, overloading our inboxes yesterday. I love Gang of Six. Please give me a part of it. There's a little bit of a disconnect between leadership and rank and file.
Oh, absolutely. And don't forget, Barack Obama coming out and saying, hey, the plan doesn't necessarily help anybody.
He's got his own politics.
But yeah, everybody wants to be the last-minute hero on this. Both Boehner and Obama, remember how they came out looking pretty good after this whole continuing resolution deal that they struck earlier this year. So, yeah, and that's one reason why you're seeing it get pushed to the very, very last minute, because someone wants to swoop in and say, I'm the hero. And believe me, Mark Warner being part of the Gang of Six is not an accident. This is somebody who still very much wants to run for president.
David Chalian, the hero that was painted yesterday by everybody appears to be Tom Coburn. The Oklahoma Republican senator who was not in the Gang of Six, came in and endorsed it last minute. We're now finding out he says he and the president talk still very frequently. So to me, it felt like choreography a little bit. Coburn endorses it about 9:30, 10 o'clock on the Senate floor. 3 hours later, the president's out there going, I love it. And didn't quite endorse it, but he came close.
I think it felt like choreography when Coburn initially left. I think that's where the choreography began, is when he sort of left those talks in order to be wooed back to have this moment. The Gang of Six, they have always been looking for the moment in this debt limit fight
I didn't think they were going to find it. I'll be honest.
I didn't know they were going to find it. And as you know, it's not legislation yet. There's very little time. I don't know that this vehicle is going to be a legislative vehicle by August 2nd. That sounds like a huge mountain for them to climb. But they did indeed find their moment in this debate.
And Cynthia, for the first time, the president actually picked a fight with Congress and won. He's actually lost every one of these battles as far as public opinion is concerned. What was different this time for him?
For one thing, he's learning how to use the bully pulpit. How many times has the president had press conferences in the last 2 weeks? When in fact, much of his first 2 years went with no press conferences at all. So I think he's learning to communicate better, for one thing.
And Christina, the other part of this, they're all waiting on the House Republicans. We know Speaker Boehner is there. He'd probably, if he could endorse the Gang of Six, would. But he might be alone in the House Republican caucus. And that's an issue for him.
And which then it all falls on Nancy Pelosi, and there have been some stories out today.
No, or it falls on Steny Hoyer. I think ultimately, because I don't think she's going to be there to be counting votes to cut Medicare.
I think they're going to have to. It's sort of that question about who's the grown-up in the room, if this is really going to happen, the stock market's going to tumble. It's TARP all over again. All
right, we shall see. Shameless plug time. Cynthia, I'll start with you.
Read my column where shameless plugs. I talk about shameless Republicans who don't care if the economy teeters over the abyss. ajc.blogs.com.
All right. Christina?
Well, first, happy birthday to David Chalian.
Maybe you took my shameless plug, too.
Anyway. But roll call, we have a little tidbit today that some White House leaders, Valerie Jarrett, Josh Dubois, and Melody Barnes, are meeting with faith leaders about the deficit.
Interesting. David Chalian.
If you need a compliment to First Read, check out the Morning Line at PBS NewsHour, our website. And today, Judy Woodruff will be interviewing Ron Paul.
Ron Paul, who sits at 9% in our poll. He doesn't ever grow, though. It just sort of sits there. We shall see. Thank you all. That's it for this edition of the Daily Rundown. Tomorrow on the show, among my guests, Democratic Senator Chris Coons from Delaware.